Okay, so we're going to start out by talking about Shakespearean tragedy. We've been talking about it. Shakespeare's tragedies are a little bit different than many other tragedies that we see. So I gave you a handout. We talked about this a little bit yesterday. Before I go forward with it any longer, take a minute, talk to your shoulder partner about what you learned yesterday and what you remember yesterday about tragedies. And then I'm going to write it on the board.
I know entirely Greek, Roman, all this and it's like all the way there. And like it's different. All this tragic always the failing due to itself. Prior to peace, whatever it's just like it's almost always like a suicide. And then it's
Okay, 5, 4. Did I give you enough time?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. What's the most important thing we learned yesterday? Oh, you guys were talking like crazy. Just share one thing you learned yesterday.
in Shakespeare tragedies, usually like the reason the tragedy happens in the first place is due to the protagonist's like fault.
So it's got a character fault, a flaw?
Yeah.
Okay, so what? Character flaw, what else? How does it show up, or do you want to say any more? Is that all you want to say?
That's all I'm saying.
Okay. What else? Denise? Okay.
There's always a struggle between good and evil.
Okay, there's always a conflict or a struggle between good and evil. Anybody else? Denise, if you scratch your head one more time, you're gonna have to talk. Anybody else? Okay, there's always a conflict. Then it can be internal or external or both. Remember me, I think I said that close to the end of class. So there's an internal conflict or an external conflict or both. So how would that show up in Romeo and Juliet?
Internal would be how she can't or they can't love each other.
Okay,
And the external
because they're
does.
not supposed to be loving each other.
And external would be the families fighting.
And the family's fighting. Another example of the internal conflict, who could think of an internal conflict that Juliet has?
Whether she should marry Paris because of her family saying so, whether she should go Romeo.
Absolutely, because she wants to please her parents. Like in the very beginning, before she meets Romeo, when they're talking to her about meeting Paris and marrying him, she actually says, whatever you want me to do, I'll do. She has never stood up against her parents. So she's like so compliant. And that's the way she's been raised. So now when she's rebelling against them, it creates a lot of conflict within her because it's so foreign to her. It's hurtful to her. How many of you, one of the questions I asked you when we were doing these posters, and we got to the question about how does this relate to you? And I said, you don't have to write a personal situation, but just think about it. You love your mom and dad probably more than you love anyone in this world, right? When you get in an argument or a fight with them, it's heartbreaking. You might be really mad at them, but it still hurts. Because if you're in trouble, where are you going to go running? If you need help, who are you going to go running to? Your parents. So Juliet, 13, 14, 15 years old at the most, she's never stood against them. Okay, so that internal and external conflict. Anybody remember any others before we move forward? Okay, so the handout that I passed out today. The tragic hero has a fatal flaw and he's cursed by fate. He can't escape it. He's a good person, so he doesn't start out being a bad person. He really starts out as being the good guy. But he makes truly big mistakes. There's a big struggle between good and evil. There is tragic waste. Does anybody remember me talking about that yesterday? The tragic waste. So what is the tragic waste?
Alzheimer's.
What is the tragic waste? Who can point to that? What gets wasted in this play?
Their lives. And others.
So which lives?
Mercutio. Tybalt. Yeah. Paris. Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, lots of young lives. And we're going to write on this. We got to the point in this exercise a couple of days ago that we were writing sentences and questions. But before the end of class today, since we're on an extended schedule today, we've got more time, and you guys are going to practice writing essential questions on your own. And so an essential question doesn't have a right or wrong answer. It has big ideas that lead to more questions and big discussions. So this tragic waste that we encounter in Shakespeare's tragedies are so unnecessary. But these characters are trapped. Romeo and Juliet are trapped. It's like, how could they have gotten out of this situation? And we talked about that over and over again. So, tragic waste. Now, in his plays, in his tragedies, there's always a release of the audience's emotions through empathy with the characters. And I saw that with all of you when we would be watching the play, and I'd get ready to turn off the film for the day because we're just watching like an act at a time. And you would be like, don't turn it off, because you felt so connected with them. Is there anyone, without looking it up, is there anybody in here who can give me a definition just a layperson's definition of the word empathy.
Feeling sympathy for another.
Similar to sympathy, not exactly the same. So give me a definition of sympathy. We'll start there. Ben? Yeah, when you feel so sorry for someone and you want to reach out and help them, you want to fix it for them.
And empathy is knowing that feeling exactly, because you've been through the same thing.
That's perfect. That's exactly what empathy is. So we have pretty much all felt the range of emotions. We've all felt deep sorrow. We've all felt loss. We've all felt extreme joy. Empathy is when you see someone else feeling a feeling and you look at them and you know you have felt that exact feeling. And you then can access that feeling and feel it again. It's not about fixing it. It's not even about saying, I know exactly how you feel because I felt it. It's about feeling that feeling that they're feeling. It changes your tone of voice. It changes your body language. And it allows you to connect with someone on a completely different level. Sympathy is when you feel sorry for somebody. And lots of times you want to, like, put your arms around them and you want to fix it. But the problem with sympathy is you can't really fix things for people very often. And a lot of times people don't want you to fix it. They feel what they feel. They don't want to hear, oh, I felt the same way. It is not helpful. But if you can feel the same feeling they're feeling and just be with them, that can bring people a lot of comfort. Can you all think of a time that you've been hurting and someone's just sat there with you and just been there? Maybe not even had a lot to say, just been there? And it's been helpful? I'm going to use Everett for an example here. I don't think he would mind. Everett, you're going through some things. You just had surgery on your knee. You're walking on crutches. It's not a good feeling, is it? Have you had friends who haven't had a lot to say? They've just been there for you. And doesn't that bring, well, I'm not going to tell you how. You tell me what that does.
Just makes you feel good, I guess.
Yeah. It makes you feel, I guess, heard is the best way for me to say it. You're not alone. They can't fix it for you. Nothing can fix that but time. And it stinks that you're going through that in your freshman year. But when you've heard that 22 times, you don't need to hear it again. You already know that, right? But just someone being there with you without saying anything, knowing that they're feeling the hurt with you, kind of lessens it. So that's the catharsis that goes with the tragic hero. And that's what Shakespeare was so good at. Bringing the audience in, drawing them in to the point that they feel empathy with the characters. And I've seen you guys go there. But when we talked about, why are we studying Shakespeare? Very few authors are able to do that at that level. Very few, especially consistently. So that's catharsis, the release of your emotions through empathy with these characters. The things you wrote up here on these posters about their pain showed me that you were feeling their pain. Okay, many times in Shakespeare's tragedies, there are supernatural elements. So in Macbeth, there's witches that are foretelling the future. But in Romeo and Juliet, what's the supernatural or extra-natural elements? That potion, yeah. I don't know of any potion that someone can drink that they're not breathing, their heart's not beating for how many hours?
6 days.
Yeah, 16 hours or so, and then all of a sudden they come back to life. So that's the element of the supernatural in this one. A lack of poetic justice. Life is not fair. Did they deserve to die? Even the good guys are not spared. And Romeo and Juliet, neither one of them were spared. And that is, boy, that's a tragedy. And then comic relief. One or more humorous characters who participate in scenes that are intended to lighten the mood when things get heavy. Can you think of which character does that early on in this play? Mercutio, yeah. So he acts as a foil during the play for the purpose of lightening the mood. He does that several times. So if I ask you to write for me a paragraph on maybe 4 or 5 different elements of the Shakespearean tragic hero on our final test, would you guys be able to do that? Would that be a fair test question for you? Raise your hand if you think that would be something that would be good for you to remember. Okay. So I think that's one that we will practice doing. It's something that I would like for you to take away from our study of Shakespeare, because it's something that you will revisit when you read Macbeth or Hamlet. And you'll be doing that as you continue, okay? Okay, now I want to move to our essential questions. I need one of those. Ben, do you have those handouts? Okay, Aiden, would you hand me one? Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Okay, so we have done everything now on this exercise, and we're ready to take it to fruition, because we did the characteristics of one of those 7 characters. Then we did the stations, where we ask questions that were first global, then our community, and then how do they apply to me. So now we're going to write some essential questions, and this will be for a grade. So take 2 minutes and look over this sheet before I start talking to you, so that you have some orientation to it. You already know what essential questions are, but I want you to look at what we're getting ready to do. So take a couple minutes to look this over.
I want my hair to grow out.
This is the first page, they're not numbered, but the paragraphs are the first page.
What? I need my mouth to come back, bro. I need my mouth to come back. That's kind of what I have going on right now, but it's just too short.